Hey there, hey there, hey there. Good day to you. Bernie Miklasz here with another Bernie Miklasz show here on my YouTube channel. Thank you for supporting it. Please subscribe if you haven't, or get the word out if you did. If you do like what we do here. Anyway, I'm excited today because we're going to talk about something in history. I think a lot of you have maybe heard about this now. I know I talked about it on KMOX today, earlier today on this Thursday. And for those who didn't know this, today, January 30th, marks the 25th anniversary, the exact date of the Rams' 23-16 victory over the Tennessee Titans to win Super Bowl 34 down in Atlanta. And of course, I was covering the game. I was at the game. I covered that Rams team all season. It was a thrilling experience. I will always be grateful to have those memories and to have that incredible experience. And I know that some people, maybe some of you, have sworn off the NFL, and I don't care about anything to do with the NFL. You know, the Rams are in LA now. Why should I care about Okay, whatever. You're entitled to do what you want. I don't have to do it. A St. Louis NFL team won a Super Bowl, and the great fans, the great football fans of St. Louis, and they are great, still are. They still are. Waited a long time for that because when Bill Goodwill's father moved the Chicago Cardinals to St. Louis in 1960, they were here until 1988. They had only made the playoffs 3 times. I should correct myself. They were here from 1960 through 1987. They were here for 28 years, and they made the playoffs 3 times, and they lost all 3. The Air Coryell years in the mid 70s were great. There were some fantastic, Hall of Fame players. I mean, there were some good things, but the whole experience, 28 seasons, 3 trips to the playoffs, 0-3. The team moves. The Rams come here in 1995. They weren't very good at first. They weren't very good at the time they moved. So we didn't know what we were in for. But I'm going to celebrate this anniversary. I'm going to celebrate this team because, as I like to say, we all know how this ended. But the thing I'm not going to do, some of you can do this if you want. I'm not going to reminisce about the 1999 St. Louis Greatest Show on Turf Rams and contaminate it by talking about how great it was and then start talking about Roger Goodell and Stan Kroenke and all that. You know, I took a vow, I don't know how long ago. I said, man, I'm just not going to let Stan Kroenke and Roger Goodell live in my head. I got things to do. I got things to watch. I got sports to write about and talk about. And I have been privileged to see some extraordinary things in my nearly 40 years of covering sports as a columnist and a broadcaster in St. Louis. So when you have a treasured anniversary like this one, I do not know why you would want to torment yourself, and I do not know why you would continue to let the outside world know that Stan Kroenke still lives inside of your head. You can't shake him, not even when you're remembering something as special and extraordinary as the 1990 St. Louis Rams. So that's all I'm saying about it. I'm going to use one of my phrases here. It's obnoxious, but I like to use it. Anybody who wants to be a diaper baby about this, go ahead and be a diaper baby. I'm not going to join you. Maybe I'll be a diaper baby about something else. Not now. 30 years, 25 years ago today was something that I never thought would happen. And I was truly grateful to have a chance to be there and read about it and just to witness it and all that whole season. So if you don't mind, I'm going to reminisce and I'm going to be upbeat and I'm not going to get into all the other stuff that other people just simply will never stop talking about. Won't do it, other than to acknowledge that I'm not going to do it. All right, so the Rams moved to St. Louis before the 1995 season. All right, follow me here now. They won 7 games in the first year. They won 6 in the second year. They won 5 in the third year. They won 4 in the fourth season. So let's do Sesame Street here and count numbers or something. All right, let's review. 7, 6, 5, 4. Escalator going down. Down, down, down. heading to the bottom floor. Welcome to football hell, because there, looking at it, it was like I was grateful we had an NFL team. Don't get me wrong, but they're getting worse. Every year they got worse. They hired Dick Vermeil. I actually felt sorry for him in 1998. He takes the Rams into Philadelphia for a Thursday night game or a Monday night game or something, and it was brutal. They had no offense. They had no star players. Isaac Bruce was hurt. And Dick Vermeil went back. It was like a homecoming for him. And, his team was awful. And, there was a little bit of talk maybe Dick would get fired. I didn't think he would. But the point is, he was kind of on thin ice going into 1999. He's one of the finest human beings I've ever had the pleasure to get to know in professional sports or in any rank of life, actually. So anyway, during the first 4 seasons here in St. Louis, the Rams averaged 18.5 points per game. They were untalented. They were dull. They were ineffective. They were predictable. It was starting to get kind of boring, even though it was nice to have a football team. You just kind of wanted something to just, something great to happen, right? Well, little did we know what was going to happen in 1999. Hello, Kurt Warner. Hello, Marshall Faulk. Hello, Mike Martz. Hello, the new offensive coordinator hired by Dick Vermeil. Suddenly, the Rams took center stage. No one said it was okay for him to do it, but they did it anyway. They just said, heck with this. We're good, and we know it, and it's about time that you know it too. And they shocked the football world. The 1999 Rams led the NFL with an average of 33 points per game. So the first 4 years, we're seeing an offense averaging about 18 points per game. This one, all of a sudden is averaging 15 points more per game, and no one could stop them. Here's a good number for you. You know me, I'm a nerd. I can't help myself. The first 4 Rams teams in St. Louis scored 30 plus points 12 times in 64 regular season games. 30 plus points 12 times in 64 regular season games. The 1999 Rams scored 30 plus points 12 times, but only 16 games. Yeah, pretty big upgrade, wouldn't you say? The Rams got off to a hot start in 1999. They became a surprise team. I remember being in Cincinnati, and this is that game where Az-Hakim returned a punt return for a touchdown. He had another score. The Rams were high flying. They're making all these plays. They routed the Bengals. And Kurt Warner, no one knew who he was. And out like national media is asking him about, are you surprised by yourself? And how do you explain this underdog story, Kurt? And Kurt's one of the nicest people like ever. But there's certain buttons you push with him, and he runs out of patience. And already in that 99 season, I think it was 3 games in, maybe 4 at the most, he was already tired of the storyline. Oh, like this cute little puppy. Oh, you ran in, you didn't have a home and you came running in here and you're so cute. And isn't this a cute story? Aren't you a cute little underdog? That man was all business. He knew that he was great, and he knew that this team was great, and he wanted nothing to do with this narrative about the quarterback who came out of nowhere, the puppy who was adopted by the Rams, the cute little puppy underdog. No, he shut that thing down, kind of snapped in his way, not really snapped, but kind of, showed his irritation with the line of questioning. It was like basically, hey, we're a really good football team. I mean, I don't look at us as some kind of underdog Cinderella story. We're good. I think I'm good. I think I know what I'm doing. And I love that. I remember turning to a couple of my St. Louis media colleagues and say, well, this thing, they got something going here now because they're starting to believe. So anyway, they got off to a hot start. They went 13-3. And the last loss of the season was when they were pulling their starters. It was a final regular season game. So the games they were trying to win, they were 13-2. They had the most prolific and creative offense in football. They won the NFC West. They hosted the first home playoff game in St. Louis NFL history. Remember that? First play from scrimmage, Isaac Bruce took it to the house, caught a pass, took it to the house, and the Rams went on to rout the Minnesota Vikings. The final score was very misleading because the Vikings scored a couple touchdowns in garbage time. So they hosted the first home playoff game in St. Louis NFL's history. Anybody who was there or anybody who watched it just knows what a awesome thing that was. And then they won the 1999 NFC Championship, and then they won the Super Bowl. And then they had a Super Bowl parade in downtown St. Louis the day after the triumph in Atlanta. And I was sitting in Georgia Frontier's vehicle, open air convertible, for that parade because I was doing a column on her, the owner of the Rams, and I was taking notes. And I just thought it was hysterical because she's sitting in the back and, she's waving. She looked great. I mean, she was dressed magnificently and she looked great. And she's waving to the crowd and everyone's calling out wonderful things to her. And she's waving to the crowd and blowing kisses. And I turned to whoever was seated next to me and I said, this must be what it's like to like if you're riding with Queen Elizabeth or something. I'm like, in that moment, in terms of football in St. Louis, she was the queen. That was a fun day. And I may or may not have had a couple screwdrivers on the flight coming back on the Rams, not the players plane, but in the other plane, for Rams employees and various dignitaries and one media guy, me, so I could chronicle everything. And this is fun. I'm getting off the track, but that's why this video is going to be long. So you want to listen to stories or you don't. If you don't, I take no offense. This is for the people who do. Just like traveling with the Rams or being around Georgia Frontier, being with the Rams, period. It's like you just never knew who you're going to wind up with. So this is this is for people of a certain age, and that's okay. So I board the charter plane, big jet. They put me in first class. I didn't warrant it, and who I was seated next to in that flight from Atlanta back to St. Louis for the parade. Remember Bobby Vinton, who had all those hits in the 60s, maybe some in the 70s? He later opened up a theater in Branson. Bobby Vinton. I'm not going to sing. Look him up. So I'm sitting next to Bobby Vinton, and we're talking about 60s music. Nice guy. Anyway, it was an extraordinary story, and that parade just capped it all off. They had an unexpected star in Kurt Warner, who came out of Northern Iowa. He came out of the late shift at the Hy-Vee supermarket. He came out of Green Bay Packers camp, where he was just the fourth quarterback, and he was the camp arm. And he was so nervous that when the Packers put him in there, he basically was scared out of his mind. And, Brett Favre and all those guys were like making fun of him, but in a good natured way. So he wasn't quite ready for a trial in pro football. But Warner, came out of Northern Iowa. As I said, he came out of the late shift at the Hy-Vee market in Iowa, came out of the Packers training camp, went to play arena football. He was really good there. Came and went. He went to Amsterdam. He was in NFL Europe. He came out of that. The Rams gave him a chance. So basically, we're not talking about a guy who was ticketed for the Pro Football Hall of Fame at this point, right? And more on Kurt, but it's important to remember that the Rams made some aggressive moves after the 1998 season. They signed free agent quarterback Trent Green, who really changed the team culture. They traded for Indianapolis running back Marshall Faulk, and that was basically a steal. They signed free agent guard Adam Timmerman, who became a team leader. He had won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. They drafted wide receiver Torry Holt in the first round of the 99 draft. Isaac Bruce was finally healthy after really tearing a hamstring, terrible hamstring injury in 1998. And entering his third NFL season, left offensive tackle Orlando Pace was ready to become an all-pro and more. There was veteran linebacker Mike Jones, who went through the hard times. The Rams signed him before 1997. 1997 was a tough year. 1998 was even a worse year. But Mike Jones stayed strong as the leader and kind of was the voice of that defense, and a man of amazing character and strength. I thought it was fitting because he had gone through those hard times on the ground in St. Louis in his hometown. I think it was his hometown. He's a Mizzou guy. That it was only fitting to me that he clinched the Super Bowl victory with that famous tackle, the tackle of wide receiver Kevin Dyson at the 1 yard line to deny Tennessee Titans the tying touchdown. I'll never forget it as long as I live, because at first it was confusing. You couldn't see whether the play had been whistled dead in the press box in real time. It was kind of like, what just happened here? Did he make it? I remember Jim Thomas and I, the football writer at the Post-Dispatch, I was a columnist. We had like that half a second of uncertainty, and then we realized it was over, and you could see Dick Vermeil running off the sidelines with his hands above his head, and the NFL films captured his reaction. You ought to look it up sometime on YouTube because it's great stuff. And And so if you go back a few months though, Trent Green suffered a season and ending knee injury in the third preseason game. The Rams were crestfallen. I mean, they were down. They were emotionally devastated. They really thought they had a chance to be something special because that offense was clicking under Trent Green. He knew the Mike Martz offense because he had experience in it with the Washington Redskins at the time before Martz was hired. He came here. Martz urged the Rams to sign Trent Green. Trent Green looked like just what they needed, man. He raised everything at Rams Park as far as just the dedication, the professionalism, the training, the meetings, working to be great. And a team that needed direction from someone other than the coaching staff got it in Trent Green. And he should never be forgotten in his role in shaping the culture of that team. So all of a sudden he's gone, though. He's gone for the season. And they had to take a chance on Kurt Warner, who at that point had attempted 11 regular season passes, completing only 4 of the 11. And that happened in the fourth quarter of the final regular season game at San Francisco in 1998. I was standing on the sideline watching it. So I said to somebody, hold on, I want to see this guy Warner. We haven't seen him play yet. Little did I know what was going to come out of that 4 out of 11 mop-up job in San Francisco. But Martz really liked him. Martz really put Warner through the grinder. And I do remember this at practice. I remember just seeing in other meetings, said, boy, he's hard on Warner. Why is he being so hard on this backup quarterback? There was always a method to Mike Martz's madness, if you want to use that cliche, because he would just put Warner through the grinder. He was barking at him after every mistake, barking at him every time he missed a read, every time he threw to the wrong receiver, anytime he let loose a poor throw. If he was off in his pre-snap reads and all that stuff, Martz would go nuts. And this was all intentional. It had nothing to do with Mike Martz being a jerk. Martz wanted to see if Warner could handle pressure. He wanted to see if Warner had the necessary mental toughness to deal with everything and anything that NFL defensive coordinators and NFL defensive players were going to be throwing at him. And, Martz's thing is like, look, man, if he can't handle me getting on him all the time and like chewing him out like he's some yard dog, he's not going to be able to play in the NFL and amount to anything. And you know what? Kurt Warner told me he knew exactly what Mike Martz was doing, and he loved it because it gave him a chance to prove himself that he was ready and he was tough-minded. He didn't care how much you hollered at him. He was going to shake it off and go to the next play and do it right. So that was an interesting turning point in this whole thing. So when Green got hurt, and it was so devastating, Vermeil asked Martz to give an honest assessment of Warner. Was he good enough to start? Could he lead an offense? Was he calm? Was he prone to panic? Can you trust him when it gets hot in games? Martz simply told Vermeil, if Kurt's our quarterback, we'll be fine. In that understated way, we'll be fine, Dick. Seriously, we'll be fine. This kid's tough. He's accurate. He understands our offense. Maybe he understands our offense better than anyone in this building except for me. I mean, he's a student of the game and he got all this down, and we run some crazy stuff, complicated stuff. And Mike Martz later said, the thing about Kurt was it's like he had this calm inner confidence that nobody could break. It just couldn't be broken. And Martz said, that's what I wanted to see. And that's why I was so dang hard on him, pretty ruthless on him. It all turned out pretty well, didn't it? So they took a chance on Warner, and Warner threw 3 touchdown passes in his first NFL starts against a really good Baltimore Ravens defense that would win the Super Bowl the following year. And I remember the Rams coaches, Jim Haniff and some others, I remember after the game, and they were like, this guy's pretty damn good now. They already were starting to believe. They weren't surprised by what he did. Anyway, Vermeil had hired Martz as an offensive coordinator, and Martz knew what to do with his influx of talent that I just pointed out. No West Coast offense for Martz. He took the Air Coryell offense. He advanced it with more innovative formations and personnel groupings and kind of wild stuff like defenses couldn't even comprehend what he was trying to do. They'd come out and line up in something crazy, and you could see them. Guys are just looking around like, well, what do we do? They just blistered every defense just about that they took on. And I liked about Martz, about him as an offense coordinator. He people call it the greatest show on turf, what it was. But the thing about Martz is like he had this flair and this bravado and kind of this cockiness in a good way that is just like, well, no one's going to beat us. They're not going to stop us. Are you kidding me? It's not going to happen. So the Rams kind of brought this, for lack of a better way to frame this, they sort of brought this bravado and a little bit of obnoxiousness, but this unbelievable confidence and brashness, that you would see from one of the, some of the stars in like WWE wrestling, right? The Rams were not only excellent offensively, but they made every game an event. They made every game a show, including their name, the greatest show on turf. So I want to tell you this too. How great was this team? And I'm going to reference to something that happened recently. This season, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes set a new NFL record for most game-winning drives in a season. He had 8 during the regular season and added another in last week's AFC Championship win over Buffalo. All right, in 1999, do you know how many fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives Kurt Warner generated in 1999 in the regular season? How many? Fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives. How many? None. And he didn't have to lead any miracle comebacks. The Rams, this is something I didn't realize at the time, and this record still holds. The 1999 Rams outscored opponents by an average of 18.6 per game. It's the greatest point differential in a season by a team that has won the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl era that began 1966, no Super Bowl champion had gone through the season with a point differential of domination that large. The 1999 Rams still hold that distinction. However, it wasn't that Kurt wasn't capable of doing that. And those of you who were watching this game or at the Dome for this game, boy, the Rams were in trouble against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, NFC Championship. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were just beating the snot out of the Rams. I mean, it was a physical game, and the Rams were holding their own. But the greatest show on turf offense went up. That Tampa Bay defense was so fast they could match the Rams' speed, so the Rams always had a hard time with them, or most of the time anyway. So this was not a game for the meek or the weak. This was a game of endurance. This is a game of perseverance. It was a game of having a survival skill. And you know what happened? Late. Ricky Proehl down in the corner of the end zone, almost to the corner, right by the flag, in the end zone, the near end zone. Kurt Warner, perfect pass, 11-6 win. What a weird score, 11-6 win over Tampa Bay. And then in the Super Bowl, Kurt Warner, oh, you want a game-winning drive? Okay. He didn't have to do it in regular season. Oh, you want one? Okay. I'll save it for the biggest game of the year. Game's tied at 16. The Tennessee Titans had been dominating the second half after trailing 16-0 at halftime. About 2 minutes, 5 seconds left. And Mike Martz spread it out. He had 4 wide receivers on the field. And Ricky Proehl ran an inside route. Hakim and Holt and Bruce ran go routes, which is just like go, run far. Kurt saw the single coverage on Isaac Bruce. He also saw Javon Curse coming at him, the great defensive end for the Titans, and he got that ball off in the nick of time, but he had to deliver it so fast, he underthrew it a little bit. If he had held onto the ball, he would have been sacked, and the play never would have happened. The Super Bowl winning play offensively never would have happened. You know what happened. I mean, Isaac Bruce caught the ball at Tennessee's 43-yard line and then zigzagged his way into the end zone. I mean, it was just a beautiful moment in St. Louis sports history. And of course, it wasn't over until Mike Jones made the stop. But Warner didn't have to lead any late comebacks or game-winning drives in the regular season. But, man, when they needed a rescue against Tampa Bay, they needed a rescue against Tennessee, he was there. And he was utterly fearless under pressure. He was that guy that Mike Martz told Dick Vermeil he would be. Warner passed for more than 4,000 yards and 41 touchdowns in the regular season. He set the Super Bowl record with 414 yards passing to go along with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He became the 6th player in NFL history to be chosen as regular season MVP and Super Bowl MVP in the same season. Faulk was the perfect piece. I mean, perfect piece for the Martz offense. Number 28 could burn defenses as a runner. He could burn them as a receiver, and his all-purpose presence made it easier for Martz to dictate the terms of engagement. He would force the defense to make a decision. Okay, defense over there. All right, who do you want to stop? You want to stop Marshall? You're gonna stop. Okay, you're gonna line up, stack the box. You're gonna put your fastest linebacker on Marshall. Okay, is that what you're gonna do? Okay, fine. We'll just line up our wide receivers and we'll kill you, and we'll give it to them. It'll be a good day for Isaac and Torry and Ricky Proehl and Az-Hakim. That's fine. You do what you want. Oh, you take Marshall away. Okay, good. We kind of like that. That's cool. Now it makes it easier for us. But if you want to play extra defensive backs to stop Holt and Bruce and Hakeem and Ricky Proehl running those under routes and everything else, if you want to do that, that's okay. We'll just make sure we've got Marshall Faulk hanging in that backfield, and we'll leak him out on a short pass over the middle or to the sideline where you're playing safeties deep and you got extra backs deep. And so we'll just make sure we either hand it to Marshall or we'll flip the ball in the air to Marshall and he'll go. We're good with that too. Whatever you want to do, we will beat you with our offense. And again, that was that brazenness of Martz, and it was a beautiful thing to be around. In 1999, Faulk set an NFL record at the time, 2,429 yards from scrimmage. He had more than 1,300 yards rushing and more than 1,000 yards receiving. He made 110 total first downs that year as a runner and a receiver. Az-Hakim and Proehl combined for 1,800 yards receiving and 14 touchdowns receiving. Tony Horn, remember him? Overlooked guy in the memory banks. He returned 3 kickoffs for touchdowns that season, including a big one in that victory over the Vikings, because the Rams were behind by a point, I think, at the half. And Tony Horn changed the game entirely. And the route was on because he returned an early kickoff in the second half, took it to the house, and the Vikings were shaken and the Rams were on their way. First home playoff football game ever played in St. Louis. Now, how good was Orlando Pace? Listen, he had Kurt Warner's blind side, and what that meant is that Mike Martz thought so highly of Pace that he never hesitated to have Pace out there on the left flank on an island all alone. And there were times when Orlando Pace, because I had binoculars on because I love watching him play, because he had to hold up his side of the field with all these crazy schemes and formations and personnel groupings that Mike Martz was putting on the field. So he would often take on 2 pass rushers on the same play. Like, he was a quick man for his size, quick feet. So he'd get out there and punch. He'd get the first hit in on the first pass rusher, and then he was quick enough to slide over and bump the second pass rusher. And once he slowed the first one down, he'd finish off the second one. And he gave Kurt Warner that 1 second more that he needed to release the throw downfield. This is a wonderful stat. Despite dropping back to pass more than 500 times in 99, with all those empty backfield sets where it was up to Pace to protect Warner because there'd be extra pass rushers more than the Rams could account for. So Pace would have to take on that entire side, right? Despite dropping back to pass more than 500 times, Warner was sacked only 29 times all season. That was like the 8th lowest total, 7th lowest total time sacked by an NFL quarterback that year. Orlando Pace officially allowed 1.5 sacks that entire season. And with Pace snuffing out the pass rush on his edge, Martz was emboldened to run all those empty backfield splits where he would just put everyone out there wide and move them around. They'd go in motion. The defense had no idea. The whole key was emptying the backfield. It never would have worked unless Pace could protect Warner's blind side. One of the great left tackles in NFL history. Some Rams fans didn't like him. I think they always held it against him that he held out as a rookie, and then he had the franchise tag, so he didn't have to report to training camp a certain time, and he would report on the due date, but he didn't come early. I mean, I got an argument one time, when before I was going to make a presentation on behalf of on behalf of Orlando Pace for the Pro Football Hall of Fame meeting, and I was talking to a Rams fan in a place, and he was just saying, "That guy wasn't that good." Hey, he wasn't that good. What? He wasn't that good. Look, pal. Just because you were mad he held out as a rookie, get over it, okay? This is one of the top 5 offensive tackles in the history of game, and as I said in the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection meeting, and I had all the stats and charts to back it up. Real big surprise, right? No tackle of his era, left tackle, ever had the responsibility of pass protecting for as many empty backfield sets as Mike Martz ran. In other words, there were some great offensive tackles at that time. None of them were put under the duress that Orlando Pace was because his offensive coordinator knew and trusted him to X out that left side. And if he didn't, the Rams never would have had the offense that they had. But I had people in my face. Oh, he's kind of overrated. Ooh, just the memory of it makes me question mankind. Just kidding. I want to talk about this, and I've gone 31 minutes. I told you, man, this one's going to be long. This is a podcast version. You can listen to it when you're working out or walking the dog or whatever. I'm going to shortchange 99 Rams. I got a lot of memories, a lot of info from that team. We should remember 3 other things about the 99 Greatest Show Rams. Dick Vermeil made 99 possible by changing his ways as a coach, and he changed dramatically. He really pushed his team hard the first couple of years. He thought they needed discipline. He thought they needed to be toughed up, but he went probably a little overboard, as he acknowledged, because he changed. He had these long, hard physical practices. Back in those days, there weren't any limits on how long you could practice or how much contact there was. And he had lots of hitting. Players complained. I mean, there was a lot of grousing. They had a meeting. They said, look, you're killing us during the week. We don't have our legs to take in the game. We're slow. You know, we're tired going into the game. We don't have everything. The tank's already been tapped into. So, coach, we need you to lighten up on us. We're ready to win, but we got to have our legs. We got to be fresh going into games. And Vermeil said, you're absolutely right. And you guys are tough now. I trust you. So he listened. He adjusted it. In 99, the Rams had much lighter practices. They had very little hitting. They instead, smart Dick Vermeil, they used that time to sharpen the Mike Martz passing attack, to make it more precise, had better timing, make sure they had everything down. And that was an important development. And Vermeil gets all the credit. He made the Rams tougher, but then he relented when he's like, okay, these fellows are now ready to win. Let's make sure they're fresh going into games because no one will be able to stop them. And that's exactly what happened. Speaking of which, the Rams defense gets overlooked in the 1999 story. Significantly better than most people assume. Sure, the offense gave the Rams a lot of big leads, but you know what? The 2000 Rams who actually scored more points than the 99 Rams, the 2000 Rams defense couldn't stop anybody. So it didn't matter. I don't care that in 1999 this defense was playing with big leads, because the following year I saw a defense playing with leads, and the other team would always catch up or they would come back and win because it couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't shut anything down, right? So the Rams played strong defense in 1999. I looked this up today to be sure. They led the league in sacks. They led the league in run defense. They allowed an opposing quarterback rating of 64.1. That's crazy. That was the second best by a defense that year. Quarterbacks beat the Rams for only 19 touchdown passes. They got picked off 29 times. They were sacked 57 times, the most sacks in the league. Only 3 NFL defenses allowed more points, fewer points than the Rams in 1999. That defense was outstanding. DeMarco Farr was outstanding. Kevin Carter, Todd Light, Keith Lyle, Mike Jones. I can name others, but those guys were terrific. This one really, this one's important to me because when we were covering the Rams and the Rams were winning and they're scoring points, I'd hear grumbling in the press box from the city where the Rams were, the writers, broadcasters there, or if I was at a game and there were national writers visiting, and you'd hear grumbling. You hear, well, the offense is fun and they do a lot of fancy things, but what happens when someone's going to hit them in the mouth? Can they be physical? Or are they going to be a kind of team you rough them up, they're just going to pack it in? And I said, well, I guess we'll find out, but I think they're tough because I think number one, Dick Vermeil made sure that they would be tough because he worked them really hard. And you see Faulk and you see Warner and you see Bruce and you see Marsh, Faulk, Warner, Bruce, Holt, all these guys, the offensive linemen, they had pace. They weren't fooling around. I think they took pride in also being physical when they had to do it. So I hear these writers being smart, Alex, and it sounded like they were talking about the Rams as if they were like a ballet company or something instead of football. But the feeling was out there. Well, the Rams are kind of soft, aren't they? Yeah, okay. That team was strong up front on both sides of the ball. To win the Super Bowl, the Rams had to take on two of the most physical, nastiest, and fastest defenses in the league. They beat Tampa Bay in a steel cage match, as we talked about. They won that game by 5 points. They traded hard hits and blows with that Jeff Fisher coached Tennessee team that had just a ferocious attitude, both sides of the ball. And they held up, even though they tired. The Rams defense was on the field a lot in the second half, but they held up, and Warner made the play to Bruce, and Jones made the tackle. And this team showed it was tough enough to make that final stand. And they were able to match anyone's toughness that they played. No one out-toughed them at any point during the season. Even a regular season game they lost at Tennessee, the Rams were tough enough. They took some big blows early in the game, and they had Tennessee on the ropes late in the game, and Tennessee survived for a close win that looked like it was going to be a blowout. I thought the Rams sent a message that day. And the Mike Jones tackle at the end of that hard-fought, exhausting, and draining game is all you needed to know. That defense was spent because Eddie George and Steve McNair just kept running and running and running. I mean, it was something else to watch. But the coaches and players, they just wouldn't surrender. They weakened a little, but they wouldn't surrender. They wouldn't cave in. And I think Mike Jones represented all of them and their heart and that toughness that no one believed in when he made that stand in the final few seconds of a glorious season that no one saw coming. And let's talk about Kurt Warner's toughness. The Titans, Jeff Fisher sent the dogs after him, man. Greg Williams, I think, was the defense coordinator. They battered Warner in the first half of that Super Bowl. He had damaged ribs. He spent halftime on the table in the locker room receiving an IV because he was badly dehydrated. He had to get fluid in him. He had an injection to cover the pain. Vermeil told me after the game that he was shocked just by seeing Warner's appearance. He described Warner's face as like ashen. It was like gray. He appeared weakened. He was in obvious discomfort. So Vermeil went to Warner, and at halftime, according to Dick Vermeil, he told Kurt, he said, "Look, you've taken on too much punishment. I'm really, really worried about you. So I think it's best, we start Paul Justin, the backup quarterback, in the second half." And this is like something out of a movie, right? So Warner would hear none of that. I mean, he's tired, he's in agony, and he sits up on the table, and he looks Dick Vermeil straight in the eyes, and he says, I'm playing, coach. That's all there is to it. I'm playing. And then Dick Vermeil says, okay, but I'm playing. And again, you can't, this stuff, if you script it, it's just like, oh, come on. That's like schmaltzy stuff, but it really happened. Kurt went out and made history for the team, and he made history for his team, his teammates, Dick Vermeil, Georgia Frontier, everybody, Charlie Army, that team, and he did it for St. Louis and a fan base that had waited decades to have a team of this greatness and of this magnitude. It was a classic underdog story. It was easy to embrace, but this was no fiction. This was all very real. It was an exciting experience for me to cover the 99 Rams. I mean, I can't tell you how exciting it was to go from 4-12 in 1998 with no offense to Super Bowl parade after winning the Super Bowl with that offense. Are you kidding me? It's something to behold and something that I will always treasure. I think about it. If you look behind me, that side, you'll see Kurt Warner. That's an autographed book from him. And you'll see in the middle, that's an autographed helmet by John Unitas. I grew up watching John Unitas. I grew up and became a big sports writer, and I covered Kurt Warner. And they were both underdog stories. Johnny U played semi-pro football, before the Colts signed him because some scout said, you ought to take a look at this kid, Unitis, I think is how his name is. And Colts fans didn't even know how to pronounce his name. He got his chance to play when a first-round pick named George Shaw, not to be confused with George Bernard Shaw, broke his leg in a game, and the first pass that John Unitas threw in the NFL was intercepted and returned for a touchdown. Well, as they say, the rest was history. But underdog story, just like Kurt Warner. And you know the other thing about that? Johnny U's first NFL championship, they won 23-16. 23-16, went in overtime. It was a taut thriller, 23-16. Kurt Warner's first championship, 23-17. I mean, it's virtually an identical score, and the games were very similar. I mean, there was a fight to the very end. There you go. I'm honoring Johnny U and Kurt on the same shelf up there. Love them both. I remember having dinner with Georgia Frontier, the owner, during the 99 regular season. She told me she had consulted with her astrologist. Georgia was eccentric, but I loved that part of her. She wanted the astrologist to give her a reading on the Rams' chances of winning the Super Bowl. Georgia told me the astrologer gave her a full rundown of this and that, and this and that, and this says this, and this says that. And Georgia looked at me and smiled. She said, "You'll have to wait for the answer." And then she didn't say another word. So she was kind of playing with it, playing with the whole thing of her going to an astrologist. But maybe the astrologer was right. Maybe Georgia knew what was going to happen. The planets were aligned for the 99 Rams, but with all due respect to the astrologer, and even all due respect to Georgia, I don't think the charts had anything in there about Kurt Warner, because no one from outside saw Kurt Warner coming or the 99 season coming. But that's why it was so special. All right, it's 40 minutes. Like I said, that's podcast length. So I don't want to hear any complaints about the length of the video. You can convert it to a podcast form and you can listen to it at your leisure. I was not going to let the 25th anniversary of the greatest show on turf, Super Bowl, win. I was not going to go let that fly by with just a little dinky video and, blowing it off. No, I wanted to try to do this right. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I'm happy for St. Louis football fans that they had that one incredible afternoon that they can savor against the backdrop of all the negative stuff. No one can ever take that away. No one. Just remember that. Thank you.